Moat on the volley, and back corner. What a start for West Bromwich Albion. Unbelievable! West Bromwich Albion have ruined his big day.
Line again, and it's Adam Wingy who gets the final touch, and West Bromwich Albion now have a 2-goal cushion.
The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Back again today with another match reaction / we're going to call it a / general chat about West Bromwich Albion, talking all about them today in today's episode 57 of the Baggies Podcast. So welcome back if you're a regular, welcome if you're a newbie. So if you're a newbie, I highly recommend you drop us a subscription to the podcast. Just click subscribe, follow on your podcast platform. If you're on YouTube watching me live, hello. Make sure you're subscribing on there, as we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But before we get into this, be sure to be watching all of the content on our YouTube channel, and also take a look, listen back at any podcasts that you've missed. And if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you leave us a nice little review as well. Got to apologise, a bit of housekeeping first, for not doing a podcast over the past week or so. Haven't felt too well. You may still hear in my voice that I'm a little croaky, bit of a cough and a cold. So unfortunately not been able to film any videos, as couldn't go too long without sneezing or coughing. However, we're back in the podcast business and ready to react to a West Bromwich Albion victory. Thankfully, we missed a couple of draws. We didn't miss any wins whilst I was away. But yeah, we got a 2-1 win against QPR to react to today and talk all about. Also, a bit of a general chit chat about what's going on at the club at the moment. But yeah, let's get straight into this episode of the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 57. Let's get straight into it. Let's get straight in and get cracking on this week's episode. Of course, we've missed a couple of games. We won't go into too much detail about them, just give some overall thoughts and some points to take into the game that we're going to focus on today against QPR. However, obviously, we missed the draw against Derby, 0-0, which was immediately virtually after the Millwall game. That was our last podcast, last time you were with us. So if you didn't check that episode out about the Millwall game, make sure you go and do that. We had Tom from Baggies Bulletin turn up for that one, and he was great on the podcast, so make sure you listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, we missed the Derby game. We also missed the Preston game, which was a 1-1 draw. So let's talk a bit about the Derby game to get us kicked off with and show how things have changed a little bit since that game and since the Millwall game. So the Derby game was an interesting spectacle. I think it was one that I don't think Albion fans were massively disheartened by the performance. It was more disheartened by the scoreline. I think Albion fans were relatively pleased with the way that we played. I certainly was relatively pleased with the way that we played. Obviously, not scoring any goals is obviously a little bit of a concern, but not a massive concern really. We can deal without that, and I'm sure that we can brush past that and try to improve on it going into the next game, which we did against Preston. Obviously, scored a goal, but of course, the game was a bit of a different one for Albion. Obviously, having a large proportion, I'll say, of positive possession moving forwards with the ball. I think that was probably something that we haven't quite experienced so far, really, with the style of play that Ismail has played. Obviously, not having much of the ball at all. But this time we had 64% of possession, which is our highest possession of the season, which is something that I don't think we're quite used to under Valérien Ismail. Obviously, used to dominate, letting other teams have a bit of the ball and then hoping to catch them on the counter, press them high and win it back. So in terms of the Derby game, I think that was something that I think was quite difficult to hold on to the ball for that long. I think it was something that was a little bit foreign for us, really, against Derby. Obviously, 0-0 draw. Derby set up very well, as did Millwall, as did Preston. Quite compact and quite defensive against us, trying to just contain the opposition as much as they could, really. Obviously, we did do a lot of long ball in the first half. I think there was a lot of long, straight balls. But in terms of chances in front of goal, or shots in front of goal, there was just one, really, for Derby. There was a Curtis Davis header, which resulted in off target. However, we racked up 25 total shots, 21 chances created, 2 big chances. See, the one coming to Darnell Furlong at the end of the game was an absolute golden opportunity, really, for Furlong to put that away, and he didn't quite make it. And obviously, that's when you knew it was just not going to be our day. In terms of players that played quite well in that game, I thought Grady Dean Garner was particularly exceptional in that game. I thought he looked really good. And worked really hard. Obviously got hauled off against Millwall when I thought he was actually quite decent. Didn't get hauled off against Derby, but was good with his dribbling, and I thought that was something that we've perhaps not seen from him. Obviously, getting past players and doing well is something that we want to see from Dean Garner. It's something that we have seen so often since he joined the club, but not quite often enough over the past year. And it was really good to see Dean Garner notching in, getting involved with the play and trying to take players on, because that is what he's good at. He's good with a trick. He's good with a quick burst of pace to get past defenders, although it hasn't quite looked like he's good at those things this season. So I think it's good to see that Dean Garner is hopefully getting back to a bit of form, looking a bit more confident indeed, especially in that Derby game. So yeah, we're pleased to see that. Obviously, the 0-0 draw was the disappointing part, not scoring, and obviously some booing. As you can tell by the title of the episode, the Boo Boys, because there was a lot of booing in all 3 of these games that we're going to talk about, or brush over the first 2 and then really go into detail about the QPR game. There's booing in all 3 of them, which I think is a little bit far for a team that I think at the time of the Derby game were top of the league after the Millwall game. So yeah, I think that's a bit far, and I think probably were top of the league after the Derby game as well. Now second in the league, still unbeaten. So yeah, I'm disappointed with the booing. I think again I'll brush over on that when we get to Preston and we get to QPR. But I think the booing is a little bit over the top, and I say a little bit, it's a lot over the top. I know you may not enjoy the style of football, but there's been no losses. There's been no real capitulation. There's been no battering. You haven't been battered 4 or 5-0 by under par sides or any side, to be honest. You played really well against most sides this season. It just happens to be that those 3 games brought a little bit of issues really for Albion. So yeah, we're disappointed with that, and we're disappointed with the way that we played in those games. But the booing is a little bit over the top, so I'll just say that for now. Let's go on to the Preston game. Obviously, we're disappointed by the result of Derby, especially with the amount of chances and possession that we had. The Preston game was a little bit different, to be honest. I thought they could have actually nicked a result at times there. If it hadn't have been for Shemi's great pace at the back, they might have ended up with a goal. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Preston and how that one went for us, because it was another game that was quite similar to Derby, quite similar to Millwall, quite hard-working side, wanting to win the ball back, but lots of possession again, 61% on this occasion. But Preston were the ones having some chances as well. Patrick Bauer having a header that he just about missed. Emil Jakobsen missed the target from quite close range. So those 2 chances really for me, they stood out, and I thought, quite lucky not to have conceded a goal there. But we had quite a lot of XG, or expected goals, in that game, 1.55 in that particular one. So I was disappointed to see us not pick up a win. Obviously, the goal came from a back post, Matt Phillips tap-in, following a long throw from Darnell Furlong. So yeah, I was pleased to see that. But obviously, Preston scored early on from a shot from distance from Ben Whiteman, which just ended up trickling into the net and wrong-footed the keeper. So you can't help that, but the reaction wasn't really there. I think there was quite a lot of standing about, quite a bit of lack of urgency, and I think that was the case in the QPR game a little bit at times, especially in that first half after going a goal down. There was quite a lot of lack of urgency, and there's quite a lot of we got plenty of time, and I think that's the sort of, I know that's good, but it's kind of the philosophy that Valerian Ismail has instilled. You've seen him several times in the press conference coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, well, we had belief that we'd score at some point," which is obviously why people aren't rushing and why people aren't really getting the ball forward as quickly as perhaps they have. It's just sort of been a bit more turgid and a bit more long ball over the past few games. So it's been really disappointing. And obviously we're quite disappointed by that. But I think there's still room for improvement following that Preston game. There was some good bits. I thought that Callum Robinson looked decent when he came on, tried to get the ball down and try to play. Jordan Hugill obviously had a chance quite late on in the game, which was a shame that he couldn't actually convert that. But yeah, I was disappointed with the performance there. But obviously, things like this are going to happen. Obviously, Jordan Hugo missing the goal and just playing it straight back to the keeper virtually. We're all disappointed by that result. But yeah, I think in those 3 games that obviously I've mentioned against Millwall, against Derby, against Preston, it was all similar opposition. Teams have started to work out how they can and can't play against us. And I think the QPR game, which we'll go on to in a second, really epitomised what we were talking about really in finding that plan B. If you remember that episode of the podcast where we spoke to Tom from Baggies Bulletin, we both discussed the fact that there was a lack of plan B in that Millwall game. We didn't quite know what to do. So let's go on to the QPR game, and we'll chat a little bit about a plan B and a bit more of one than what we saw in the games leading up to that one. So let's get straight to the QPR game in this match reaction podcast. So QPR was a very good game in the end, I think is the way to describe it. For most Albion fans, a really good game in the end, a 2-1 win against Queen's Park Rangers at home at the Hawthorns, under the lights as well. If you want to check out a POV, almost a point of view from where I was sitting in the ground, and a match day vlog, if you like, showing you my match day experience, my view, all the nice views, and also videos of the goals and videos of the atmosphere around the Hawthorns, be sure to check out the match day vlog that's available on YouTube now. And obviously, if you were to subscribe whilst you're there, that'd be lovely as well. And you can also hear an instant match reaction. I know this is a bit of more of a thought out match reaction, but yeah, I think if you want to go and check out a more instant match reaction, there's always going to be one at the end of every match day vlog. So let's get straight into this podcast part about Queen's Park Rangers West Bromwich Albion. So we can all start with the way that the game started, because there wasn't much breathing room. Obviously, we went out with a lineup that was only one change since the game against Preston, and that was for Karlan Grant to come in for Jordan Hugo. Not a welcome change from the Albion fans. However, we must stress, or it was Grant in for Hugo. So it wasn't a welcome change by Albion fans to say the least, to be honest. Lots of Baggies fans would rather have seen Callum Robinson in the side, myself included. I'm not going to pretend that I was one of the, yes, we want Karlan Grant in the team army, because quite frankly I wasn't. I haven't seen much reason this season to have him in the team before this game. But yeah, we started the game really poorly. I think that's the way to put it in context for you. The fact that the BBC live ticker didn't even get to saying kickoff. The goal notification was part of the kickoff notification, was a little bit worrying as to how quickly we switched off. Andre Gray was played through, beat the offside trap. Supposedly, I didn't quite see. Connor Townsend was slightly out of position, leaving a bit of a gap in behind. The escape of Andre Gray almost in behind the defence. Sam Johnson half came and obviously didn't close the angle down well enough because of how far away he was from actually getting there, and actually ended up leaving more of a gap behind him. And it was a win. It was a goal for Andre Gray. I think that was disappointing, to be honest. I thought that obviously the organisation of the defence so early on in the game, I think that was pretty awful, to be honest. Yeah, I think I was disappointed with that defending. I think Townsend was a little bit out of position. He's not a centre-back, so it's fair to say that he's not going to be in the position all the time, because that's quite frankly not where he's supposed to be playing. And I think a lot of people appreciate that, and they know that he's better out wide. And of course that we know that Connor Townsend is better a left wing back, and certainly not better at centre back. So yeah, he was out of position ever so slightly, and we all knew that. And it left a bit of a gap. We're not sure whether Andre Gray was offside, because the camera view from the highlights package was a little bit dodgy, and it was a bit side on, so it was a bit sort of diagonally on to the play. So we couldn't quite see that very well. So yeah, that was disappointing to see us concede so early on in the game. Really, I thought that was it was just a complete lapse in concentration, and that was really disappointing, to be honest. So yeah, that was awful, to be quite honest. An awful start to the game, and we wish that we wish that we started a little bit better than that, to be quite honest. And obviously, a lot of Albion fans very angry. That first half was not much to behold, to be honest. In that first half, there wasn't too many chances for Albion, really. It was only really in that second half where the Baggies really started to come to life and started to get involved in the play and started to really carve QPR open. That second half, obviously. But there were some good passages of play in the first half. I thought Adam Reach was really good in the first half. You may not agree. Obviously, let me know via Twitter or via the comments if you're listening on YouTube that I thought Adam Reach was really good. I thought he was very tidy, worked very hard, and did the best thing for Albion, really. I thought he played some good passes. He can put in a really good cross. It's just that in that first half, he really didn't have anybody to aim at. He was aiming at a front three of Diangana, Phillips, and Grant. There's no height in there whatsoever. Phillips is big, stocky player, but he's not an aerial threat by any means. But yeah, I was really disappointed that Adam Reach was putting in these fantastic crosses, and there quite frankly wasn't anyone there to attack them. There was in the second half, and that was Jordan Hugill, who came off the bench and came into play for Matt Phillips, which was good to see. And then obviously we brought on Callum Robinson as well, who essentially changed the game. So bear in mind we're 1-0 down, it's half time, and there were a lot of boos going around the stadium, which was really disappointing to see, as I said again, from Albion fans. It wasn't a great first half, but it was only half time. Obviously, we didn't play particularly well, but to be honest, yeah, we didn't play particularly well, but the boos are just so over the top. It's so almost entitled from Albion fans that some Albion fans feel that, you know, you should be winning every game. I know that's a hope. It certainly shouldn't be an expectation to walk over every championship team, and that for me is why the boos were a little bit ridiculous against QPR. 1-0 down to a solid championship side who are likely to challenge for playoffs, and you're 1-0 down. Yes, it was poor defending, but none of the players had played particularly awfully. There was no reason to start booing. I get that Villar and Ismail made some tactical mistakes, and I get that crossing in balls to 5'10" strikers and wingers is not going to work in a million years against 6'3" centre-backs. We all got that. But there's no need to boo the team, especially when you're still unbeaten. The football, yes, was a little bit discoordinated and a little bit uncohesive in that first half, but there's certainly no need to boo. There's certainly no reason to be booing. I guess that's a way of getting your thoughts across to the team, but yeah, it's certainly not very helpful and certainly not very respectful. I think that I can understand why there might be a flatter atmosphere if you're not playing particularly well, but there's certainly no need to boo. If you're bottom of the table, 20th in the league, like we were at points last season, losing every game, losing 5-1 against Crystal Palace. If we were in the ground, everybody would have booed, because that is awful. That is below par. That is substandard football. However, when you're second in the league, you've been top this season for quite a few games, unbeaten, and people are still booing. Yeah, I'll never understand that, to be quite honest. But yeah, that's where I stand on the booing. However, Karlan Grant was the man to spark us into action. Callum Robinson played a lovely little sideways pass to him in the first half, setting him in and allowing him to cut inside, grabbed a shot, which Seny Dieng put in a bit of a howler, to be honest. He went to gather the ball and completely missed it, and it went almost behind his head, and he couldn't quite pick it out. So obviously, a goalkeeping error let us back into the game, but I thought that we deserved it on balance of play. You look at the amount of chances that we created at 18 shots, 15 chances compared to QPR's one big chance of the match, which I assume was for their goal. Yeah, I thought we deserved to get back into the game. However, I thought it was a little harsh on Dieng, but however, he had been time wasting from about the 8th minute, so he probably deserves that ball to go in the back of the net due to him. To be quite honest, I'm not going to show any sympathy. It was a shame that we scored in that way. I'd like to have seen us score a prettier goal or a nicer goal, but yeah, I think Seny Dieng got his just desserts for his time wasting, certainly with that little goalkeeping howler from the goalkeeper of QPR. But yeah, that Karlan Grant, obviously at half time everybody was wondering how he'd stayed just after half time when the substitutes were made. Everybody was kind of wondering how he was still on the pitch, myself included. I was like, how is Karlan Grant still playing on the pitch today? And in the end it was him who changed the game with great finishing. So yeah, we can't exactly moan about Karlan Grant. I thought he was very good second half, and he showed a really good finishing ability, especially for the goal late on in the game. I thought everybody was really pleased with the way he played, and of course, 87th minute, Callum Robinson. It was just fantastic play for that second goal. I thought it epitomised everything that we should be doing under Valérien Ismaël. The high press, winning the ball back, hounding the QPR players who wanted their time on the ball, knowing when they're a bit leggy and getting straight into them and winning the ball back, taking the ball off them, and quick, but yet short passing, not just lumps down the pitch. Quick, incisive, short passing. One pass, I think, from Moa into Hugo, a back heel into Robinson. Robinson sees the run of Karlan Grant down the left, outnumbering the QPR defence, and Karlan Grant a really good finish into the bottom corner. So, yeah, it almost epitomised everything that I think we should be doing under Valérien Ismaël, and I'll be disappointed to have to go back to the football where we don't really press. We never really pressed in the first half. We did a little bit of single man pressing, but that never works. It only ever works pressing when you're pressing together as a team, and we did that for that second goal, and that's why I was so pleased with the way that goal went in. But yeah, 2-1 against QPR is not a bad result, considering I expect them to be challenging around the promotion places, or maybe not the promotion places, but the playoff places at least this season. Obviously fallen off over recent games, but were one of the only unbeaten sides in the Championship a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I thought it was a really solid victory. Glad to see us get back on the winning side, to be honest, after 3 draws, and I hope that this can spur us on. Yes, it was a little bit of a get out of jail in the way and the lateness of the victory. However, it's all about leaving, I suppose that might have been in the master plan of Valérien Ismaël, to leave it until virtually the last minute, and then you end up taking QPR out completely by winning the ball back high up the pitch, and then using those sharp, incisive passes to get the ball back and continue and get into their area and really cause them proper problems. So yeah, that was my thoughts on QPR, West Bromwich Albion, also a little bit on the Derby game, also a little bit on the Preston game as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed that win yesterday. Again, if you haven't checked out the Matchday vlog or any of the other podcasts, make sure you go and do so. Hope you guys have enjoyed the podcast today. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, this is my little announcement for you. I'd love to have Albion fans on, hopefully on a weekly basis from now on. So if you are interested in coming on the podcast, you want to share your views, you want to share your thoughts, just drop me a little message on Twitter. There'll be a tweet going out about it just before this episode. So be sure to get involved if you want to get involved with the Baggies Podcast. I'd love to have you on. Simply a 20-minute Zoom call or something like that with your thoughts on the game. I'll ask you some questions about your thoughts on the club and the game that we're talking about. And that's that. Obviously, you'll be promoted in the description of the podcast with your links and social media. But if you want to be part of the Baggies Podcast and want to get involved and be a part of an episode, be sure to subscribe and also leave us a little message on Twitter if you're fancying that opportunity. But that does bring me to the end of the Baggies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. But I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, Baggies fans. See you soon. Enjoy your week.